Stop everything you're doing right now. What you are about to hear will either transform your life forever or leave you haunted, wondering what could have happened if you had truly listened. This is not another speech about struggle and hope packaged for comfortable consumption. This is a blueprint for liberation, a message forged in the fire of battle, delivered by a man who has stared empire in the face and refused to bow. My name is Ibrahim Traoré, speaking to you from the heart of Burkina Faso, but understand this clearly. My voice carries far beyond these borders, beyond the artificial lines drawn by colonizers on maps they created to divide us. My words bear the weight of an awakening continent, a continent that refuses to die quietly in the shadows of history, a continent that refuses to forget who it truly is and what it has always been capable of achieving. I have seen governments collapse like houses of cards when their foundations of lies could no longer support the weight of truth. I have seen how oppression is manufactured in boardrooms, polished in media centers, and exported like a product with sophisticated marketing campaigns designed to make victims grateful for their chains. I have watched ordinary men and women, people written off as powerless by systems designed to crush their spirits, rise and become unstoppable forces of change that reshape the world around them. And today, I speak directly to you, my brothers and sisters in Black America. Let me ask you one question that should haunt your dreams and wake you up screaming until you answer it with action rather than words. What if I told you that everything you've been taught about your history, your limitations, and your place in this world was never truth, but deliberate design? A carefully constructed lie meant to keep you kneeling at altars of false gods, while others feast on the fruits of your genius, your labor, your creativity, and your endless capacity to transform suffering into beauty. I do not speak to you as a distant observer watching your struggles from across an ocean. I speak to you as family, as blood, as someone who recognizes the fire burning in your eyes, because it is the same fire I see in every African who finally says enough. It is the same fire that burns in me when I think about centuries of humiliation, exploitation, and systematic attempts to convince us we are less than human. The same fire that refuses to be smothered no matter how much water they pour on it, no matter how many lies they tell to diminish its heat. You may wonder what gives me the authority to speak with such boldness, such certainty about systems most people accept as permanent and unchangeable. Let me tell you something that will chill your blood and steel your resolve. I have seen their meetings, their boardrooms, their secret planning sessions, where they discuss entire populations like chess pieces on a board they control. I have watched how they treat millions of human beings like commodities to be bought.
This is not just another speech. This is a blueprint for liberation. Ibrahim Traoré is speaking directly from the heart of Burkina Faso, but his voice travels far beyond its borders. He's calling out the lies, the false histories, and the chains designed to keep Black people divided. His words burn with the fire of an entire continent awakening.
Sold, manipulated, and discarded when they're no longer profitable. I have seen them ignite wars that kill thousands while their children sleep safely in mansions built with blood money. I have watched them strangle entire economies, creating poverty and desperation that forces people to migrate, then blaming those same people for the chaos their policies created. I have seen them topple democratically elected leaders who dared to use their nation's resources to benefit their own people rather than foreign corporations and international banks. All of this they do while smiling in front of cameras and preaching democracy, human rights, and freedom to audiences who have been programmed to applaud their hypocrisy. But more importantly, I have seen something else, something they fear more than nuclear weapons, more than economic sanctions, more than military invasions. I have seen what happens when people who were told they are nothing suddenly remember they are everything their ancestors dreamed they could become. Your pain and ours wear different costumes, speak different languages, but spring from the same poisoned well. Police brutality in your cities and military occupation of our villages. Educational apartheid in your schools and systematic underdevelopment of our institutions. Mass incarceration that recreates slavery by other means, and debt slavery that keeps our nations perpetually dependent on their loans and their conditions. Resource theft disguised as foreign investment and cultural appropriation that steals our innovations while denying us credit for our contributions to human civilization. But make no mistake about the deeper truth that connects all these seemingly separate struggles. All of it flows from the same poison source, the same global system designed not just to break our bodies and steal our wealth, but to erase our memory of who we were before they told us who we should be. This system, this global machine of oppression with its tentacles reaching into every corner of Black life worldwide, was designed specifically to sever the bond between Africans in the motherland and Africans scattered across the diaspora by the violence of slavery, colonization, and ongoing economic warfare. They knew that divided we could be controlled, manipulated, played against each other like children fighting over scraps while they devour the feast. And yet here we are, after 4 centuries of the most sophisticated, well-funded, technologically advanced oppression in human history. Here we are, unbroken, unbowed, still creating beauty from ashes, still resisting systems designed to crush our spirits, still breathing freedom into spaces where they tried to suffocate hope. That persistence, that magnificent refusal to disappear, terrifies them more than any army, any weapon, any natural disaster they could possibly imagine. Now hear me clearly, because this next truth will fundamentally change how you understand the world and your place in it. The greatest weapon they ever used against us was not the whip that scarred our ancestors' backs, not the gun that murdered our leaders, not even the endless poverty traps they disguise as economic policies designed to help developing nations. No, the greatest weapon was division, the masterful strategy of convincing us that we are separate, unconnected, powerless without their approval, validation, and permission to exist. I come to you today with no arrogance, no condescension, only raw truth spoken in the language of love, between family members who have been kept apart too long by lies designed to weaken us all. I have studied their strategies with the intensity of a military commander preparing for the battle of his life. I have seen how they exploit our differences, manipulate our pain, and turn our legitimate anger against each other instead of against the systems that created the conditions for that anger. They perfected the psychological science of teaching the oppressed to love their chains, to beg for crumbs at tables we built with our own hands, to compete with each other for the privilege of serving masters who see us as expendable resources rather than human beings deserving of dignity and respect. But I am here today to shatter that illusion forever, to hold up a mirror that reflects who we really are beneath the lies they've layered on our consciousness like toxic paint. You are not beggars wandering through history with your hands outstretched, hoping for charity from people who grew rich by stealing from you. You never were. You are the children of builders whose architectural marvels still stand while their so-called empires crumble into dust. You are the descendants of warriors whose military strategies reshaped entire continents and whose courage in the face of impossible odds became the stuff of legend. You are the heirs of thinkers and philosophers whose ideas shaped civilizations long before Europe discovered literacy, long before they learned to read the books we had already written. You are inventors, scientists, doctors, mathematicians whose genius they looted systematically, renamed to hide its origins, and claimed as their own while denying you credit for discoveries that changed the course of human development. You are the people who gave birth to civilization itself in the Nile Valley when others were still learning to make fire and live in caves. Your history is not just a chapter in the world's story, not just a footnote in someone else's narrative of progress. It is the foundation upon which the entire modern world stands, whether they admit it or not. We in Africa have watched you with pride and amazement as you marched through Birmingham with such dignity that it shook segregation to its core and inspired liberation movements across our continent. We saw you boycott buses in Montgomery, turning a simple act of resistance into an economic earthquake that brought an entire system of racial oppression to its knees. We heard your voices rise from Selma to Ferguson, from Watts to Baltimore, from Detroit to Los Angeles. Each cry of frustration and determination echoing across oceans and inspiring movements from Soweto to Sao Paulo, from London to Lagos, from Paris to Port-au-Prince. Your struggle became our struggle because we recognized that your oppression and ours were manufactured by the same global system. When they denied you education, you built universities that produced generations of leaders, intellectuals, and professionals who changed the world. When they locked you out of their businesses, you created your own economic institutions that generated wealth and provided opportunities for your communities. When they barred you from their places of worship, you built churches that became centers not just of spiritual life, but of political organization and social transformation. When they tried to scatter you to the winds through urban planning designed to destroy black communities, you formed new communities stronger than steel, held together by bonds they could never understand because they have never experienced true solidarity born from shared struggle. You are not broken people limping through history as victims of circumstances beyond your control. You are an unbreakable people who have survived everything they could devise to destroy you and emerged not just intact but stronger, more creative, more determined to claim the freedom that is your birthright. You literally built nations from nothing, took the scraps they threw at you, and created empires of culture that now influence every corner of the globe. They gave you pain designed to crush your spirits, and you transformed it into jazz that moved souls across all racial lines, and created a new musical language that expressed the full range of human experience. They gave you systematic limitation designed to keep you in your place, and you created blues that speaks to universal human experience with such power that it became the foundation for virtually every form of popular music that followed. They gave you exclusion from mainstream society, and you built hip-hop culture that became the most influential cultural force of the modern era, shaping language, fashion, art, and consciousness worldwide. They gave you broken communities ravaged by drugs they brought in, jobs they shipped out, and schools they deliberately underfunded.
He has seen their boardrooms, their secret meetings, their wars, and their hypocrisy. But he has also seen something they fear more than any weapon: a people who remember who they truly are. The pain in Black America and the pain in Africa come from the same poison source. Police brutality, mass incarceration, debt slavery, resource theft, all of it is part of one system.
And you created movements that changed laws, shifted global consciousness, and inspired oppressed people worldwide to stand up and demand their dignity rather than beg for recognition of their humanity. But here's what they desperately hope you never figure out: the secret that keeps them awake at night, planning new strategies to keep you distracted, divided, and dependent. The fight is not over. In fact, it has evolved into something far more subtle and dangerous than anything your ancestors faced during the era of legal segregation and open white supremacy. The enemy has simply learned new tactics and developed more sophisticated weapons that achieve the same results with less obvious violence. Where they once used physical chains forged in foundries, they now use psychological programming distributed through media systems designed to shape consciousness. Where they once relied on legal segregation enforced by law and custom, they now employ economic policies that achieve the same results through market mechanisms. Where they once burned crosses to terrorize you into submission, they now program algorithms that limit your opportunities, amplify negative stereotypes about your communities, and ensure that positive images of Black success are buried beneath an avalanche of content designed to make you doubt your own worth and potential. They have mastered the art of oppression through deception so subtle you don't recognize it as oppression until it's too late to resist effectively. They create distractions so entertaining, so addictive, so consuming that you forget what you should be focused on. They manufacture confusion so complete, so overwhelming, so sophisticated that you begin to question your own lived experiences and the inherited wisdom passed down from ancestors who survived far worse than what you face today. And here's the key to understanding everything that happens in global politics, economics, social policy, and international relations. They fear unity among people who know their true worth more than they fear any army, any nuclear weapon, any economic crisis, or any natural disaster that could possibly threaten their position. They have contingency plans for economic collapse that would devastate ordinary people while protecting their wealth. They have strategies for dealing with climate change that sacrifice the poor while preserving their comfort. They have preparations for pandemics that ensure their families receive the best care while others die from lack of access to basic medical treatment. They have detailed scenarios for managing wars between nations that maximize their profits while minimizing their losses. But they have no effective defense against the unity of conscious people who understand their collective power and decide to use it strategically rather than randomly. They fear specifically the moment when Black voices in America connect meaningfully with their family in Africa, when the artificial divisions created by colonialism and slavery dissolve in the face of shared purpose and mutual support. They panic when you reach across the Atlantic and link hands with your relatives in Jamaica, in Brazil, in London, in Paris, in every corner of the globe where the African diaspora has taken root and flourished despite their best efforts to keep us isolated from each other. They deploy massive resources, sophisticated propaganda, and carefully orchestrated disinformation campaigns to prevent you from looking past the artificial borders they drew on maps and seeing the truth that terrifies them most. We are one people, scattered by historical forces we did not control, but never truly lost to each other, never completely severed from the roots that connect us across time and space. Divided, we are manageable like individual threads that can be snapped with minimal effort. Separate, we can be controlled, manipulated, played against each other in ways that serve their interests while destroying ours. But united, Truly united in purpose and action, rather than just rhetoric and symbolism, we become a storm that no force on earth can withstand, redirect, or negotiate with on terms favorable to our oppressors. Now listen carefully, because this next truth will fundamentally alter how you see yourself, your history, and your destiny in ways that cannot be reversed once you truly understand it. You are not just Americans who happen to have dark skin, as if your melanin were some kind of accident of biology with no deeper significance than hair color or height. That limiting identity serves their purposes perfectly because it keeps you isolated from the global majority that shares your struggles, reduces your sense of connection to a broader liberation movement, and makes you think your struggle is purely domestic, while convincing you that you're alone in this fight against systems designed to exploit and control you. You are sons and daughters of a stolen continent, carriers of bloodlines that connect you directly to the most advanced civilizations in human history, inheritors of knowledge systems that shaped mathematics, medicine, architecture, philosophy, and science long before Europe emerged from what historians accurately call the Dark Ages. That blood flowing through your veins right now carries the genetic memory of kingdoms that ruled vast territories when Europeans were living in primitive conditions, struggling with basic concepts of governance, mathematics, and social organization that Africans had mastered centuries earlier. That spirit residing in your chest, pumping life through your body, is literally unbreakable because it has survived and thrived through experiences that would have destroyed any other people in human history. The Middle Passage alone should have broken us completely, but instead it became a crucible that forged unbreakable bonds between people who might otherwise have remained strangers. Never, and I cannot emphasize this strongly enough, never allow anyone to reduce you to statistics on their research reports, to stereotypes in their media representations, to silence in their decision-making processes, or to footnotes in their version of history. You were not born to merely survive the systems they created to limit your potential and drain your resources. Survival, while necessary during the most brutal periods of oppression, was never meant to be the ultimate goal of people with your history, your capabilities, and your responsibility to future generations. You were born to lead transformations that reshape entire societies, to build institutions that reflect your values rather than serving their interests, to reclaim not only what was taken from you personally, but what was stolen from your children and all the generations yet to come. The time has arrived, not next year when conditions might be more favorable, not after another election that promises change while delivering more of the same, not when the economy improves, or when racism finally ends, or when they decide to treat you fairly. The time is now to remember who you truly are, beneath the lies they've told you about yourself. Not the sanitized versions they taught in schools designed for compliance rather than critical thinking. Not the limited history written by outsiders who had every incentive to minimize your contributions and maximize their own. But the truth about what your ancestors whispered on slave ships when they thought no one was listening, what your grandparents preserved in songs, stories, and sayings that carried coded messages about resistance and survival. What your heart has always known despite centuries of psychological warfare designed to make you doubt your own instincts and inherited.
Traoré's message shatters the illusion of powerlessness. You are not beggars in history, he says. You are the descendants of builders, warriors, scientists, inventors. Your struggle is not just survival, it's leadership, transformation, and the birthright of a people unbroken by centuries of oppression.
Wisdom. We in Africa, yes, your Africa, the continent that gave birth to your bloodline and shaped your genetic memory, are not waiting passively to be rescued by outsiders who profit from our supposed helplessness. That lie of a helpless continent dependent on charity and foreign aid was crafted specifically to justify ongoing theft while making the thieves feel virtuous about their exploitation. We are rising economically through partnerships that serve our interests, technologically through innovations that solve our problems, politically through unity that strengthens our voice, and culturally through a renaissance that reclaims our narrative. But we do not intend to walk this road alone while our family remains scattered across the diaspora, fighting the same enemy on different battlefields without coordination or mutual support. Our struggle and yours are not separate issues that require different strategies and different solutions. They are the same fight against the same global system that has evolved and adapted over centuries, but never changed its fundamental character or ultimate objectives. And that fight can only be won through coordinated action that transcends national boundaries, overcomes artificial divisions, and unites us around shared interests rather than symbolic gestures that make us feel good while changing nothing substantial about our material conditions. This is not charity offered from a position of superiority, not pity extended from those who have to those who lack, not aid with strings attached that benefits the giver more than the receiver. It is unity rooted in shared blood that flows through our veins, shared history that shaped our consciousness, and shared destiny that will determine whether our children inherit liberation or continue to struggle against the same systems that have oppressed us for generations. We call you not as allies in some abstract political coalition, but as family returning home to reclaim an inheritance that was stolen but never lost, scattered but never destroyed, hidden but never forgotten. There is land here, fertile, and waiting for hands that understand its value and potential. There is work here, meaningful and wealth-building, that serves our communities rather than extracting from them. There is a future here where your children need not beg for dignity, where they will never have to prove their humanity to people who profit from denying it, where their names, their hair, their skin, their features become sources of pride rather than obstacles to overcome or reasons for rejection and discrimination. Most importantly, there is healing here. Deep generational healing from wounds that were carved into DNA and passed down through bloodlines like genetic scars that influence behavior and perception in ways we're only beginning to understand. Healing that cannot happen in isolation, separated from the source of our strength and the roots of our identity. Come not as tourists seeking exotic experiences or saviors bringing solutions to people you assume cannot solve their own problems. Come as builders planting forests of institutions and relationships for your great-grandchildren to enjoy. As family bringing skills, resources, and vision for collective liberation that benefits everyone rather than privileging some at the expense of others. Think beyond passports and borders, beyond the artificial divisions that serve their purposes while weakening ours. Think in terms of legacy, in terms of what you will leave for those yet unborn, what kind of world you want them to inherit. A world where their intelligence is assumed rather than questioned, their beauty celebrated rather than hidden, their potential limitless rather than constrained by systems designed to fail them. The empire that has ruled for centuries through violence, deception, and divide-and-conquer strategies is showing cracks that become more visible every day. Old alliances are crumbling under the weight of contradictions they can no longer hide. Economic systems once thought permanent are proving fragile when challenged by coordinated resistance. Political arrangements that seemed unchangeable are being questioned by populations who have grown tired of being lied to and exploited. In this moment of transition, in this period of global upheaval and transformation, those who know their history and understand their power must lead the way forward, rather than following others into futures designed to serve their interests at our expense. We will not beg for seats at tables that were built specifically to exclude us, designed to make us grateful for crumbs while they feast on banquets prepared with our labor. We will not seek validation from those who profit from our self-doubt, who need us to believe we're inferior in order to justify their position of unearned privilege. We will not waste another generation trying to reform systems that were designed to fail us, begging for inclusion in institutions that were created to exclude us, or seeking justice from courts that were established to deny us justice. Instead, we will build our own systems of education that teach our children truth rather than propaganda, our own networks of economic cooperation that generate wealth for our communities rather than draining it away, our own institutions of justice that deliver real accountability rather than symbolic gestures, our own media platforms that tell our stories from our perspective rather than through the lens of our oppressors. The time is now. The call is urgent. The opportunity will not last forever. The question is simple but profound. Will you answer with action, or let this moment pass like so many others? Despite all of this, despite 4 centuries of systematic oppression designed to break our spirits and erase our identity, we are still here, still creating, still rising. Still refusing to accept their version of what we can become. That survival itself is victory they never acknowledge, because acknowledging it would mean admitting their system failed. We are one people scattered by violence but bound by destiny. The lies that divided us have served their purpose long enough. Our enemies know our unity is their greatest threat. That's why they invest so heavily in keeping us apart. But the truth is clear. Our shared struggle is the foundation for the most powerful liberation movement in history. We are not scattered seeds. We are roots of one magnificent tree. The deeper we connect, the stronger we become. The world fears that unity because they know it cannot be stopped. The moment we decide disconnection is no longer acceptable, The tide of history turns. It's time. The bridge is waiting. Cross it.
The time is now. The bridge is waiting. This is no longer about words or symbols, but action and unity. Africa is rising, and its family across the world is being called home, not as tourists, not as saviors, but as builders of a shared future. When we move as one, no force on earth can stop us.